When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a gymnast. I would sit and watch Mary Lou Retton and marvel at her as she moved across the floor. She looked like this graceful little tumbleweed, flipping and twisting and flying through the air. I remember she would take off and that mushroom would go flying back. And as soon as her routine was over, I would get up and do my version. Now, there were no flips. Let's be clear about that. There were no backhand springs, no aerials, no perfect landings. But in my head, baby, I was doing all of it. I was graceful, I was powerful, I was beautiful, and most importantly, I believed I could be a gymnast. It was my dream until I told it to an adult. And that adult said, "You're too tall to be a gymnast." And just like that, dream over. But all of these years later, I find myself wondering, what if that adult had said something different? What if they had said, well, maybe you'll be the first great tall gymnast? What if they had said, I don't know if anybody your height has done it before, but why couldn't you? Would I have become an Olympic gymnast? Possibly. Probably not. But that's not the point. Because sometimes what adults say to children doesn't just change what they believe they can do, it changes what they believe is possible. And today I want to talk about the people who unintentionally teach children to stop believing. I call them dream assassins. And before we start pointing fingers at other people, I have a confession to make. I became one too. Welcome back to the Advocate Podcast, where we're amplifying voices, challenging systems, and prioritizing children. I'm your host, Dr. Kristi N. Love. And on this podcast, we have conversations about children that aren't always comfortable, but they are necessary. Today's conversation is personal, very personal, because this story I'm sharing with you today is one I originally wrote back in 2017. And when I went back and read it recently, I realized something. I've grown since then. My perspective has grown. My understanding of children has grown. My understanding of purpose has grown. But the central question is just as important today as it was then. Are we helping children discover their dreams, or are we deciding their dreams for them? Let's talk about it. Let's go.
Dr. Kristi N. Love is an experienced educator and advocate dedicated to empowering students and families to ensure children receive a high-quality education. She specializes in culturally responsive teaching, restorative practices, and social-emotional learning, helping schools create supportive and inclusive environments. Through the Advocate Podcast, she amplifies voices, challenges inequitable systems, and keeps children at the center of every conversation.
I can still remember being told that I couldn't be a gymnast because I was too tall. And here's what is interesting. I don't remember arguing. I don't remember saying, yes, I can. I don't remember defending my dream. I just remember that dream disappearing. In the original article, I described it as a feeling like my dream escaped from my heart in a wispy cloud. And almost immediately, another dream was handed to me. You're going to be a lawyer. So when people would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Sometimes before I could even answer, someone would say, she's going to be a lawyer. And I would agree. A lawyer, a lawyer, a lawyer. And this was years before The Cosby Show and Claire Huxtable. So for years, I would say a lawyer until eventually I realized I didn't even know what a lawyer did. Think about that. I had exchanged something that brought me joy for something I didn't even understand. And I wonder how many children are doing that same thing right now. How many children have learned to give the answer that makes the adults around them smile? I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to be a lawyer. All wonderful careers, all necessary careers. But is that the child's dream or ours? And here's the bigger question. When did we decide that our job as adults was to choose? Our job is to expose. Our job is to guide, to teach, to prepare. Our job is to help children understand consequences and opportunities. But our job is not to take over their lives. They only get one, just like we do. But I keep coming back to Kristi, that little girl who wanted to be a gymnast. And what if instead of telling me I was too tall, the adult had said, maybe you'll be the first tall gymnast? The impact would have been in what I learned about myself. Instead of learning there's something about you that makes this impossible, I might have learned there's something different about you, so you may have to find a different way. Instead of hearing you can't, I might have learned to ask, why can't I? Instead of seeing an obstacle as the end of a dream, I might have learned to see it as something I had to figure out. And that's what makes our words as adults so powerful. We don't have to promise children that every dream will come true. We don't have to pretend obstacles don't exist. But we also don't have to be the first person to tell them why they can't. Because life will do enough of that. There will be rejection, there will be disappointment, there will be failure. There will be many closed doors. But home shouldn't always be the first closed door. And neither should the classroom. Sometimes a child simply needs an adult willing to say, why not you? Now, here's where the story gets uncomfortable for me. Because it's easy to talk about the person who killed my dream. It's much harder to admit that years later, I did the exact same thing. When my oldest son, Logan, was younger, he told me he wanted to go to the NBA. And I told him we had enough black men dribbling basketballs. I told him that our people needed more doctors and lawyers. Then I proceeded to give him the statistics. Do you know how few boys actually make it to the NBA? Do you know what your chances are? You need an education. You need something to fall back on. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was preparing him for reality. I thought I was protecting him from disappointment. But when I went back and thought about what happened to me as a child, I realized I had become a dream assassin. And dare I say, most dream assassins have no malicious intent. That's what makes this conversation so important. Most of us aren't trying to hurt children. We're trying to help them. Parents do it because we love our children. Teachers do it because we want our students to succeed. Coaches do it. Counselors do it. Mentors do it. We look at our own experiences, our disappointments, our knowledge of the world, and we try to save children from making mistakes. But sometimes, in our attempt to protect them from failure, we protect them from possibility too. And sometimes we were passing down fears that were handed to us. Maybe somebody told us our dreams weren't practical. Maybe somebody convinced us that success only looked one way. So without realizing it, we begin assigning those same limitations to the next generation. Years later, Michael, my baby boy, told me he wanted to be an NBA player. And I started in with the same speech I'd given Logan. The statistics, the odds, the importance of education. And somewhere in the middle of that speech, I had to stop. Because I started assessing my own life. When I originally wrote this article in 2017, I wasn't happy professionally. I was complaining every single day. I was living for my days off. I had passions I could talk about incessantly, but I wasn't pursuing them. And yet here I was, telling my children what their lives should look like. I remember thinking about LeBron James. He went directly from high school to the NBA and built an extraordinary career doing something he loved. And his success allowed him to give back and create opportunities for other people. Meanwhile, I had done what I thought I was supposed to do. I went to college, I earned a few degrees, I had a respectable career. But at that point in my life, something was missing. And I had to ask myself, how can I say I love my boys and then advise them to join the same tired rat race I was complaining about every day? And why was I putting the weight of an entire race of people on their shoulders? Why did my Black sons have to become doctors and lawyers to prove they were using their brains? Why couldn't basketball be something worthy of pursuing if that was truly their gift and passion? That doesn't mean education stops mattering. It means I had to stop treating their dreams as less valuable simply because they weren't the dreams I would have chosen for them. So I changed my approach with Michael. Instead of constantly quoting the percentage of people who don't make it to the NBA, I decided to show him that I believed he could work toward being part of the percentage who do. Because one thing was certain, he definitely wasn't going to make it if he never tried. Now, I need to make something very clear. Supporting a child's dream does not mean abandoning reality. It doesn't mean saying, oh, you want to go to the NBA? Great, forget school. Absolutely not. In our house, we had homework and basketball homework, and both mattered. Michael could have a book in his hand and a basketball in his hand. We could go outside and work on ball handling drills and sit at the table and work on math drills. We could watch videos and study basketball and study the phases of the moon. Because believing in a dream doesn't mean you stop preparing a child for life. Actually, I think it means quite the opposite. If you have a dream, okay, let's talk about what that dream requires. You want to play professional basketball? Okay, let's talk about practice, discipline, coachability, taking care of your body, handling disappointment, being part of a team, managing money, communicating well, and yes, education. Because you need good grades to get into that D1 school to increase your chance of making it to the NBA. Dreams don't eliminate hard work. Dreams give hard work direction. That's an important distinction. Because I don't think our responsibility is to tell children, you can do absolutely anything and everything will work out. That's not true. Our responsibility is to say, if this is something you believe you are called to pursue, let's find out what it takes and let's get to work. That's very different from you can't. And this isn't just a parenting conversation. Educators, we have to examine ourselves too. Because teachers have tremendous influence over the way children see themselves. Sometimes a child will remember one sentence we said long after we've forgotten saying it. I know that's true because I still remember being told I was too tall to be a gymnast. So I have to ask myself, what sentences are my students going to remember? Will they remember me as someone who saw possibility in them? Or will my voice become another voice telling them what they couldn't do? Sometimes the gifts children possess don't show up neatly on a test. The child who talks too much may have a gift for communication. The child who questions everything may have a brilliant analytical mind. The child constantly drawing may see the world visually in ways the rest of us don't. The child who is always trying to organize everybody else may have leadership ability that still needs some polishing. And yes, we teach them the skills they need. We redirect, we set expectations, we hold them accountable, but we also look for the gift. Because children are more than their grades, they are more than their behavior, they are more than their test scores, and they are certainly more than the limitations adults place on them. I wrote something in that original article that I still believe. Our job is to guide our children through life, not take their lives over. That's the balance. Children need adults. They need wisdom. They need boundaries. They need guidance. They need us to see things they aren't mature enough to see yet. But guidance and control aren't the same thing. Guidance asks, what do you want? Why is this important to you? What will it take? How can I help you prepare? Control says, I've already decided what's best for you. And I think sometimes, especially as parents, we have to remember our children are not here to fulfill the dreams we didn't accomplish. They're not here to make us look successful, and they're not responsible for carrying all of our fears about what could go wrong. They have their own lives to live, as we have ours. Maybe one of the best things we can do for our children is let them see us pursuing purpose too. Let them see us trying something. Let them see us fail. Let them see us get back up. Let them see us learn something new. Let them see us discover that it's not too late to pursue something God placed in our hearts. Because sometimes the best way to teach a child to dream is to let them watch us have the courage to do it as well. By the time I wrote the original article, Logan was older, and I realized I owed him something, an apology. I had to apologize for my assassination attempt. I had to acknowledge that what I thought was guidance had sometimes crossed the line into deciding what his dream should be. And I'm grateful I realized it wasn't too late. Because when I tell my sons now that they can pursue what they want to pursue, I want them to understand something. I mean what they want, not what I want for them. Not what sounds impressive when somebody asks me what my child is doing. Not what makes me comfortable. Their dream, their purpose, their life. And if that dream changes, that's okay. Because sometimes discovering what you don't want is part of discovering what you do. So parents, teachers, coaches, mentors, grandparents, aunties, uncles, I want us to think carefully about the words we speak over our children. When they share something big with us, what's our first response? Do we immediately give them the statistics? Do we immediately tell them why it probably won't work? Do we immediately replace their dream with one that makes more sense to us? Or can we pause long enough to listen? Maybe the child doesn't need us to have all the answers. Maybe they just need us not to kill the question. Maybe instead of, you can't do that, we say, what would it take? Maybe instead of, that's unrealistic, we say, let's learn more about it. And maybe every once in a while, when the world says their difference is a limitation, we look at them and say, baby, then maybe you'll be the first. Because that's what I wished somebody had said to that little girl who wanted to be a gymnast. Maybe you'll be the first tall gymnast. Would it have changed what I ultimately became? I don't know. But I believe it would have changed something inside me. It would have taught me that an obstacle wasn't automatically a stop sign. Hey, it would have taught me that being different didn't mean being disqualified. It would have taught me to ask, why not me? And that's something I want our children to learn much earlier than I did. So let's guide them. Let's teach them. Let's hold them accountable. Let's prepare them for reality. But let's be very careful that in preparing them for reality, we don't take away their ability to imagine possibility. Our job isn't to live their lives for them. We have our own lives to live, our own passions to pursue, our own purpose to discover. Let's be examples. And when children trust us enough to tell us their dreams, let's handle those dreams with care. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Advocate Podcast. I've been your host, Dr. Kristi N. Love. And before you go, I want you to think about two questions. First, who was a dream protector for you? Who saw something in you and made you believe that maybe, just maybe, you could? And then the harder question, have you ever unintentionally been a dream assassin for a child? If the answer is yes, don't let the story end there. Mine didn't. We can apologize, we can change our language, we can listen differently, and we can become the adults who say, why not you? And until next time, keep asking the hard questions, keep showing up for children, and keep advocating. Because children deserve adults who won't stop fighting for them. Be blessed.